Well, here we are with the 1952 Buick. We're going to run over to O'Reilly's and get a new valve cover gasket. I'll show you the details later, but the one we have on there is just a little bit too big. Here we are at O'Reilly's. It's one of the best auto parts stores in the country. They can get you almost anything you want all the time, including for an old 52 Buick. So we're back, and yes, I am sitting in my driveway taking this video from O'Reilly's. You don't video and drive in these cars. You have to drive this car when you're going down the road. So we're gonna get the hood opened up, and we'll get you guys going on how to replace the valve cover gasket on 1952 Buick straight 8 engine 263. Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to ask the sun to come out. It's going to be nice and miserable, but that's okay. So we're on the passenger side of the car. You can open the car up. A little chrome handle right here, my friend. Pops the passenger side of the hood. If you remember in previous videos, the problem with this is you can't put the hood up with one hand. Alright, so here we are. And we're going to let this engine cool down just a little bit, but the first thing we need to do is loosen this screw on your air bath air cleaner, and there's going to be another one over here on the carburetor side. So this is just a flat screwdriver. Pretty simple. You do have to bring it all the way out. There's a little bracket you have to work around. I'm going to pan you guys over the carburetor side. On that carburetor side, that was just a flat screwdriver too, so I just used the exact same one here. Now we're just going to lift this whole assembly off. Just like that. So now you have your carb over here opened up. Here's your whole valve cover. And your oil fill. I'm just going to take this off. And this engine is still super hot. See all that steam, a little bit of smoke coming out. We get some wrenches. Take that off. All right, so these bolts are 5/8. Now these are not only very tight. What will happen is if you tighten these too much after you get the gasket on there, you will actually bend this cover. You actually kind of mushroom it out, and you can kind of see here a little bit. So you want to snug it up. And there's not that much oil getting thrown around in there. A good gasket will hold it. Now, you might be seeing the cotton gloves. Obviously, you don't want to do a lot of work with cotton because those little fibers will come off and they can clog the oil passages and cause you trouble. when it's hot after going to O'Reilly Auto Parts, you need to wear a little bit of gloves. All right, so we're gonna pull this cover off. See what it looks like. Yeah. Go. I'm gonna try to get you a little close-up view right there. Is that gap in the gasket. So obviously, the gasket isn't going to do its job very well, but it worked for a little while till I could get a new one. So when I replaced the original gasket that came on the car, someone had used gasket glue and all kinds of, I believe it's RVT red gasket, and that was a horrible mess. I took probably 45 minutes to scrape all that off and clean it up. I'm gonna leave all that little bit of oil residue on there, because when I put that new gasket, that little bit of oil is gonna kind of seal it, because that gasket's what, 3 feet long, 2.5 feet long, and that is a hard gasket to get to stay put for you. And I'm going to start this engine so you guys can see the valves move and I can take a look at it. I do not like to open this up very often. All right, so we're going to start it up. You have to reach all the way across and hit the throttle on these cars to start them. You press the gas pedal all the way to the floor. So I got to reach over here and start it. Now we all know, but I'm still going to say it. Right there's your fan. Stick your hand in there, you'll be coming out with a couple missing fingers. A few things I'm going to look for here. On your rods, they have oil coming down. It all looks a little dry, but it's okay. This one's really dumping the oil out. They can dump as much oil as it wants to out. It's a matter of if when it's dry. So much good here too. This one's flinging it everywhere. Sounds good. It looks good. Something else you can look at is up here, there are little holes that oil comes out to lubricate. I'm not even remember what they call this tube right here. So you can see a little bit right here is coming out. That's what you like to see. Maybe a year or two ago, I was having trouble with the car starting, and what had happened was that the car sat so long that the hydraulic lifters, the oil came out of them. So they're too squishy, and they weren't able to open the intake and exhaust valves properly. So I had to figure out a way to get oil inside the shafts here. There's little holes that are bored all the way through there, and the oil comes through here down through a little hole and into the rod. So what I did, rather than taking all these apart to fill the hydraulic lifter back with oil, is this tube right here. I simply took that off, put a syringe right here, because that's where the whole rod is where the oil flows to oil this entire assembly. I stuck a syringe in there without the needle, and I just kept filling it with oil till I could hear the bubbles coming out of each and every one of the rods. Even a few of them, I could see the bubbles come out. And then I was able to adjust the lifters correctly again. I believe the manual's 2 turns down, and it fired right up. I fought and fought and fought with this, and I'm no mechanic, but I found that that's a good little way to get oil into here without taking this entire assembly apart. Well, we're going to do the official unboxing, because that's what everybody does now on their YouTube videos. I already cut it. Oh my goodness, look at that. It is one long quart gasket for 1952 Buick, just what I ordered. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some oil here. I have a fancy container. It is a water bottle lid. I'm just going to use gear oil, any kind of oil will work. All we're going to do is we're going to coat both sides of this gasket with oil, just a little thin layer, and that'll make it sticky, so when you put it on the actual engine block, it won't slip around like a dry gasket will. So we'll do both sides. Just stick your finger on there and coat it. Just make it a little bit easier. So we're back out here on the engine. What I'm going to do, just look around here, make sure there's at least a little bit of oil all the way around, because that's going to help that gasket stay on there nice and tight. A little bit of gunk right there. All right, so we're going to put this gasket on. Lays on there just right. That is perfect, my friends, perfect. All right. Do a good inspection here, make sure it sits flat and flush, especially back here in the back. It's very hard to get in there. I'm extremely happy with that. Now I understand why the first one was so hard to get on, because it was probably an inch and a half too long. So now we're going to put the valve cover back on. Now you have to do this very gingerly, because you got to keep the gasket in place. And you don't want to drop any contaminants inside the engine as well. Ooh. That looks really good. So from this side here, you can see the gasket all the way around. I'm gonna just hand tighten these. Now, I have not looked at the carburetor side or the driver's side. I gotta make sure the gasket is on the outside edge there. All right, so now we're on the driver's side. Taking a look at the gasket here. You can see it all the way through there, creating a very nice seal. I'm very happy with that. Go ahead and, I mean, you could almost snug these down by hand. Honestly. You alternate it back and forth. So I snugged them down by hand. I'm just going to give it maybe just a few more turns here with the wrench. Again, you don't want to crank it down. You just want to snug it up so you got a good seal on that gasket, and that's the only thing you need to worry about. So now we're going to do everything in reverse. I'm going to go in and get the oil bath air filter. We're going to put that on. We'll put it on the carburetor side. We'll actually work from this side of the engine now, and we'll get it going. So we're back at the car. All we're going to do is just set this air filter back. I like to start with the carburetor side, kind of hold this end down while you bring this clamp down and around. I don't trust it to stay here on its own. It's going to make a mess all over your car having that oil spill. Just going to snug this up. Use just a flat screwdriver. Pull it on that side, and then this clamp, just do the same. The beauty of these old cars is how simple they are to work on. You need a flathead or a Phillips screwdriver, usually just a flathead. That one you snug up nice and tight. We'll double check. Let's start it up and see how it sounds. Now I started the engine up maybe about 20 or 30 seconds ago. It'd be just a good practice to look at this valve gasket. Make sure there's no leaks. Again, there's not a whole lot of oil getting thrown around in there. Maybe you can take it for a road test after an hour or so. You can stop and take a look at it. But even then, it's not going to be dripping out. It'll just slowly seep through.